All right, welcome. Thank you for joining. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, and we're thankful for this meeting of our bicycle industry retailer-focused e-bike safety and standards panel. This is a quarterly platform providing a chance for industry experts to meet, discuss, and address lithium-ion batteries and e-mobility devices safety standards and compliance. A special thanks to the panel members who have volunteered their time and expertise to today's discussion. A lot of energy has gone into making this platform a resource not just for retailers, but for the industry at large. We truly believe that working united, the collective conversation can propel us forward towards continuous growth in e-bike sales and participation with limited risk and increased safety for all. So if you're viewing as a participant today, we welcome your participation by placing questions into the chat or question function as we go along. Throughout the event today, panel members and the NBDA staff will monitor this, and some questions may be addressed live while others will be addressed back via the chat function. So Megan Smith, our NBDA programs developer, is our tech support guru today, and she'll be opening up chat for everyone, panelists and attendees to chat all together. So as we move forward here, let's kick off today's presentation with a very special presentation from Jay Townley of Human Powered Solutions. Jay will be spotlighting the NBDA Retailer Safety Pledge, which we just launched recently. It's an initiative as a joint commitment between retailers and suppliers to promote safe, certified e-bike practices. And today's focus is on boosting awareness of the important effort and reinforcing how it promotes safety, builds consumer trust, and strengthens the integrity across the industry. Jay, I'll turn it to you.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. I'm sorry. Um, this is a brief presentation. The whole point is, Heather said, is to introduce, to make sure that the panel members are aware of what NBDA introduced August 1st. The agenda that I'll go through now, I've got 10 minutes for presentation, so I want to be sure I get the key points across, but please get your questions in. And we'll try to answer them at the end. And also, I've got several quotes from Heather that she can comment on as we go through this. But briefly, what I want to discuss this morning, and hopefully we can do longer sessions on as we get further into the year, is the fact that the NBDA, as Heather said, has launched an industry-wide initiative, a voluntary safety program for the industry that encompasses bicycles and e-bikes. And the of this we've got to get into yet. I'm moving my cat aside here, who wants to be part of the presentation if I can get Stanley to cooperate. Back on August 6th, some of you may have seen this article. The NBDA calls on industry to adopt UL e-bike battery standards. And so this was the launch. The presentation that NBDA sent out by email to members went out August 1st. This was the follow-up. There are two main sections to this, and I'll back up one here to the agenda. The idea of taking leadership on safety is extremely important to the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We'll spend a little more time discussing that as to why that's important. It boils down to this, that there's going to be no federal mandate at this particular point in time. So we can't afford, because of the issues that safety raise, and speakers that will be following this morning will be discussing this in more detail, but safety's become a huge issue, and it's one that's going to be very detrimental to the whole of the bike industry if the industry itself doesn't take charge and deal with a sound safety platform. In this case, we're doing it voluntarily. We also want to emphasize the fact that there are two aspects to this. The consumer comes first, and we were talking earlier about this, and it's going to come in the next presentation. Clint Sandusky is going to talk more about the whole issue of safety, but it's multifaceted because we've got e-bikes in the mix now. And so we've got a safety issue that spans the mechanics of the bicycles we've known for decades and the new e-bikes that include lithium-ion batteries. And what we've seen coming out of the city of New York, which is the reality that lithium-ion batteries can, if they are not properly constructed, if they are hazardous, if they're not properly tested and certified, create a hazard, a fire hazard that goes along with the mechanical hazards. And then we've got retailer protection. So there's retailer safety that goes along with the whole discussion. So we've seen the brain announcement from the NBDA. This is just the beginning of the initiative. We want to be sure that we put front and center. The NBDA will let you know that we are getting more and more brands and retailers that are signing both the retailer pledge and the supplier pledge. Uh, Here's one of the key pieces. I mentioned the need for the voluntary adaptation of the UL standards. Uh, the National Bicycle Dealers Association feels very strongly at this point that safety is going to be a key issue in selling products. But what we're doing is reaching out, and this is voluntary adoption of what we already know: product certification to UL 2849, which is the UL e-bike standard, UL 2271 and UL 2272 that deal with lithium-ion batteries. So these are the focal points at this point, these three standards and whatever else goes with the 2271 batch of lithium-ion battery standards. And what we can do going forward to adopt even more voluntary standards, and we're working on developing those, because again, we can't now rely on mandatory standards. The whole situation we're in is one that says it's up to us in the industry to show consumers that our products are safe and keep our retailers safe, keeping in mind that our first focus is specialty bicycle retailers, bike shops, but there are other retailers of bicycles that are also involved here and covered by what OSHA is doing relative to national recognized test labs, or NERDLs. And we'll touch on that as we get into the presentation here. Now, Heather, this is a direct quote from you. And I'm sorry I didn't so state in the slide here, but you're here with us up front and personal. Our formal position statement makes it clear that we're not waiting for regulation. We can't. We're not going to have the mandatory regs we've relied on for years. So we're taking responsibility from the standpoint of the NBDA, working with suppliers and brands and with retailers in all aspects of retailing, not just the specialty bike shop, but beyond that to mass merchants and specialty sport retailers. So we've got this voluntary adopted standard, but be aware that Underwriters Labs works with committees to continually update and improve these standards. So as an example, CPSC, when it did get through the formal process of letting the public know that they were moving forward to regulate e-bikes, did state that there were certain things in the UL standards that they felt needed to be enhanced. Well, I'm happy to report that UL is moving forward with those enhancements. So the industry is partaking of that, is part of that. This is the brands, the manufacturers, and the battery manufacturers are all working and will work in time to make sure that the UL 2849 and UL 2271 et al. Are updated and improved as they need to be. But the fact is that the industry here is taking a united stand together for safety, professionalism, and the long-term strength of the bicycle industry. And Heather, if you want to add to that, you certainly can.
Jay, I appreciate you sharing this quote. No, I think you nailed it. We need to come together and we can't wait for regulations, so we want to lead with responsibility. Thank you for sharing that.
So, going backwards. Sorry about that. So consumer first. The UL consumer standards are really very vigorous safety standards. CPSC was about to adopt them and modify them in a modified form, just slight improvements and enhancements in them. But CPSC was about to make the UL standards mandatory. So we feel that it's very important to rally around the UL standards as they're being updated and being improved, and will be as we go forward, because they do reduce risk, particularly relative to battery fires, electrical malfunction, and in turn, they provide the base that we can build a sound voluntary safety program and a safety standards program for the bike industry. But the key here is letting consumers know that there is a safety standard. And we'll show you how that looks visually, and the NBDA can certainly enhance that. And we can discuss more in both these panel discussions and also in webinars what this initiative is and how it's going to enhance the ability to actually market product to consumers and do it in a very legitimate way, and saying that the consumer safety does come first. The other piece that's extremely important here is relative to retailers. And so we spend a little more time discussing that. Uh, the 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 last item in these bullet sets to me is the key, but what this boils down to is in working with brands and manufacturers. And NBDA can post and can bring you up to date on the brands that are signing up for the safety pledge from the supplier standpoint, the retailers that are signing up to the safety pledge from a retail standpoint. But what we're doing here is reducing the risk and preventing the safety incidents like fires, which get a lot of publicity and it's negative. And what we have to do is work very hard at educating and reducing the impact of both the non-certified product that's in the market that's unsafe, and the incidents of accidents that are being reported by the press, and giving us a negative image, and fighting back and developing the positive image that the industry really deserves, as does our products. We want to improve the insurance eligibility and the strength of bike shop integrity relative to insurance. This is going to become a bigger issue as we move forward. It's in the background, but the insurance side of this also goes to product liability. And this becomes is a growing concern as more bike shops are being named in litigation, where consumers are being injured because there is unsafe product in the market that in turn is not meeting the standards, the UL standards, that the NBDA and the suppliers that are joining with the NBDA and the dealers that are members of the NBDA in advancing this voluntary standard. We want to maintain the key here, which is customer trust, through a very transparent safety program. And that is one that's well known. So this, again, I'm repeating myself, but we want it to be abundantly clear that these are UL standards that will be updated as we move forward as are needed. And then lastly, that these standards meet OSHA regulatory compliance requirements. And that's one of the keys. There's been a lot of discussion, and I've been involved in a party to some of these discussions relative to nationally recognized test labs. So let's bring this all the way around. What the NBDA is doing in this voluntary standards effort is looking at tested and certified UL 2849 bikes and UL 2271, 2272 for lithium-ion batteries that are tested and certified by a nationally recognized test lab, a NERDL. Why? Because that's OSHA regulatory compliance at this point. OSHA requires that. It requires it for bike shop environments, warehouse environments, other retail environments, and for third-party sellers. So this is doing nothing more than bringing into the voluntary standards environment the key issue relative to nationally recognized test labs and the OSHA regulatory compliance requirements that are already in place. And a lot of people just aren't aware of that. The NBDA is, Heather is, the NBDA is making this part and parcel of the discussion at this point. So again, because of time, in summary for this session, I've discussed the NBDA launching this industry-wide initiative as of August 1. We'll continue to talk about it moving forward. NBDA is amassing and growing the number of brands and e-bike manufacturers and brands and battery manufacturers that are signing up for this voluntary standard and for the pledge. A group of retailers also doing the same thing. The issues here of taking leadership in safety, I think, are extremely important going forward, because our industry needs to have that safety image. I'm sure there's people that'll speak next that will enhance that this is all about consumer safety first and retailer protection. And to learn more, certainly the folks on this panel, but also NBDA.com. Go to the NBDA website. You'll find a lot of postings and information, plus the NBDA safety pledge. So here's the safety seal. And Heather, I think we need to promote this more and make sure that there's an understanding that this is what the brands and retailers that and supplier group that are working with the NBDA, signing up to the pledge, are getting their names and logos posted on the NBDA website. This is also what they'll be able to use in their advertising and promotion to consumers, or wholesalers to retailers, retailers to consumers. So I hopefully have chewed through 10 minutes, and we're ready for questions. I hope we have some.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay. Yeah, we do have over 2 dozen retailers already signed up and just a few suppliers. And we do hope to add to this list as we start promoting this safety pledge to our broader industry. I think Kunal from Bosch, who did post a link of Nurdles, there's several that are available that are nationally recognized testing laboratories that can be used to test to the UL, and that's in the webinar chat for everyone. I do see a hand up. Dehan from UL Solutions, would you like to comment or ask a question?
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Just wanted to add, Jay, fantastic intro. I just wanted to add, UL 2849 is a North American standard, a binational standard for US and Canada, and one certification covers both countries. That's one thing. And for the participants in this webinar that are not familiar, when we say UL, UL is not solely, UL Solution is not solely responsible for developing of the standard. There's technical committee. There's a few members on this call that participate in the technical committee. It's an industry-driven, consensus-built standard. UL, as a testing, inspection, certification company, has a single vote on that committee. So it's not a unilateral standard developed by UL Solutions. It is a consensus standard developed by technical committee in which UL has a single vote, so are competitors, and so are people on this committee. Heather, Jay, and Kunal participate in the technical committee as well. So just wanted to clear that so that people don't think that the standard is written solely by UL. To the contrary, it is a technical committee, very large technical committee that writes and develops the standard. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Dehan. Yeah. And we've been doing, the NBDA has been doing diligence in our work for the past multiple years promoting these safety standards. And we thank the entire industry for getting behind us and continuing to evolve and make sure we're selling and servicing safe product. Any other questions from our attendees or panelists? I would take them now. Otherwise, we'll move to the next topic. And Jay, thank you for that very thorough explanation of the NBDA safety pledge. Really do appreciate that.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, so I did post the link to the NBDA website that has our e-bike resources. On that website, if you scroll down, you will see the retailers and the brands who have already signed on. You'll see their logos right on that website. That's for Eric in the chat, his question there. And Don Miller, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I think this is really exciting, and um, I liked what Jay said that, the target is, well beyond your membership into some of like the large, more like mass market retailers that imagine the Targets and the Walmarts and places like that. I know this is sort of an initiative at its beginning, but I do think getting some of those big retailers signed on will be really important. And so I just wanted to share a thought that, um, after kind of inviting them and giving them time to deliberate, if we're not hearing back from some of these really big sellers, I wonder if some of the elected officials who were the various co-sponsors of the bill would want to kind of help out and, to apply some, get some more like political pressure and sunshine on if there are any kind of holdouts who, for some reason, are not agreeing to the voluntary pledge. So just sort of like sharing an idea of the people who've been championing this legislatively for years may also come in handy in terms of drawing public attention if any of those big players is not participating.
Yeah, thank you for that, Don. We have been working hard to reach out and reach out again. So that's good advice, and we'll continue to do that. Right now, we had UL Solution or UL Standards and Engagement share it out, and we're going to get some other stakeholders to help us share it as well. So I appreciate that. All right, let's keep moving forward then. We'll go to our topic number 2. So how we get our topics for our panel discussions each time is we solicit out to our membership and community to give us a list of topics that they'd like the panel to speak and talk and converse on. And so we select from those topics and then bring forth those topics to our panel members, asking for who would like to volunteer their expertise. And then during the conversation today, we will always open the discussion up to our attendees. So topic number 1 is around stunt riding safety and working with out-of-class e-bike and e-moto brands. So the question is that we'd like to explore how the bike industry can collaborate with out-of-class e-bike and e-moto manufacturers to promote designated space for safe stunt and high-speed riding and overall rider safety education. So this is a growing concern that we'd like to be a teachable opportunity. We've all seen these out-of-class e-bikes coming down the streets, maybe barreling at us or on rec paths, and it's just very high-speed riding and overall a very important safety concern. Imagine being hit by one of those when you were walking. So we need to make this a teachable opportunity. So speaker number 1 is Clint Sandusky, e-bike expert, law enforcement bike patrol instructor, giving us his take on how we can work with out-of-class e-bike and e-moto brands. Clint?
Great, thanks, Heather, and hello, everyone. And Jay, I just want to say I always enjoy your presentations. I always take notes, and I think I learn every time. I'm going to go old school today, so no PowerPoint, so technology can't fail, so I do have notes. But before we start on this topic, I wanted to talk about teen e-bike and what I call out-of-class electric vehicles. I don't necessarily like the term out-of-class electric bicycle because at that point, it's no longer an e-bike, it's a vehicle. So I wanted to start out by saying that I strongly believe that parents or legal guardians are the ultimate first line of defense in their kids' safety and behavioral choices. As I've mentioned in the past webinars, an excellent resource for parents, because parents need to be educated just as much as their kids, is a book that you can find on Amazon, either in paperback or a Kindle edition. The Caring Parents E-Bike Survival Guide, the Caring Parents E-Bike Survival Guide. Very important information for parents out there. Unfortunately, a number of parents are uneducated. They don't know the right age to buy an e-bike or an out-of-class electric vehicle for their kids. They don't know the appropriate class of e-bike to choose for their kids. They may not know the importance of education. What do I need to know about riding a bicycle? It's not that hard. And of course, the big one is managing their teens' riding behavior. Additionally to that, teens face, and we see it on the news all over the place, real peer pressure. Their friend has got a particular e-bike. A lot of times it's a class 2. So that's what they want mom and dad to buy. Here's a big one. We've also seen this on the news lately. They're influenced by bad social media influencers that are glorifying dangerous and illegal behavior. So one of those that rides an out-of-class electric vehicle, and it's a Sur-Ron, which I'm sure we've all heard about. I had no idea. I just did a search on this, And even if it's half true, this is crazy. So on YouTube, and he's called the Saronster. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So on YouTube, it says he's got 2.82 million followers. Instagram, 1.1 million followers. Facebook, 39,000 followers. So this guy is out there promoting dangerous and illegal behavior, and our kids are buying into this. So that was kind of my introduction, that I really do believe, besides retailers, that parents have to have a much greater role. And retailers, we need to get the parents involved, ask questions. Who's this e-bike for? What age is he? Et cetera, et cetera. So talking about the stunt riding and stuff, I think we first need to find, and we do know, what a legal e-bike is. And once a legal e-bike starts to be illegally modified, then it gets into, my opinion, an out-of-class electric vehicle. It could be defined as an e-moped or motorized bicycle, an e-motor-driven cycle, or an e-motorcycle. So we know what these out-of-class electric vehicles are now. E-motos, or short for electric motorcycles. Examples of those would be street legal models like the Zero motorcycles. They're pretty cool. Or off highway electric motorcycles. And of course, they're legal ones that have gone through the DMV requirements, and of course the illegal ones. And everything I've researched on Surons, they're not legal off-highway electric motorcycles. Now, I will say in California, there's a bill, SB 586, to actually define these off-highway electric motorcycles, to give law enforcement more enforcement powers to get these things off the road. We'll see how that bill goes through. So I really want to be a facilitator in this discussion by asking some interactive questions. So the one question was, should the bicycle industry collaborate with these out-of-class electric vehicle and e-motor manufacturers to promote design spaces for safe stunt and high-speed riding and overall rider safety education? But before we answer that, I wasn't sure about any safe spaces or overall rider safety when it comes to these out-of-class electric vehicles. So I made some phone calls yesterday, referenced the designated spaces. I called 2 different dirt bike racetracks. I found one in Paula, California, near San Diego. They've got a dirt track, and they do allow out-of-class electric vehicles like Surons on their dirt track, including for teens. Now, I don't know if it's easier for them, because I think apparently they're on an Indian reservation, so there are different requirements. The other place I called said they didn't, because of liability and insurance issues. So I guess it's just hit or miss. People just have to call their dirt tracks, around their area to see. The other thing that I didn't know about, is there any rider education out there for these out-of-class electric vehicles? So I called our friends at I emailed our friends at the Motorcycle Safety Foundation and got a hold of the Vice President of Training Operations. And he told me and they have many motorcycle classes. He told me in their dirt bike, which is dirt motorcycle, dirt bike school, that yes, they do allow out-of-class electric vehicles like the Surons. So there you go. Designated spaces, rider safety education opportunities, there are some. So I'm going to throw this out to everybody, and I'd love to hear your responses, especially from bike shops and other people in the industry. So my question is, if you answered yes to question 1, should the bicycle industry collaborate, et cetera, how should we do that? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I see Jay Townley's hand up.
Go ahead, Jay.
Jay, you're muted. Yep, perfect.
I want to unmute. Clint, I think this goes back to the safety issue. As far as your question goes, I would say no to the first question, because what we've adopted in embracing voluntary standards is the CPSC definition of a bicycle. And what it says is you can have a 2 or 3-wheeled electric bicycle, and the two numbers that are important there are 750 watt max for the drive system, and it cuts off at 20 miles an hour. Now that's throttle agnostic, so you can have throttled units. That's the definition of an electric bike. Beyond that, from the standpoint of at least the safety approach that we're taking, the voluntary safety standard, it's not a bicycle. It's got to be regulated some other way. What you've tripwired on here is what's called the 3-class system. And that's a use system. It is not a product standard system.
No.
So I think establishing the voluntary standard is also, and this is what UL 2849 is crafted around, and there's certain issues there that don't go to speed, and certainly don't in the 2849, they're not looking at whether it's can exceed 20 miles an hour, but that's your definition. And that's the definition that we've adopted in the voluntary standards side. So we're looking at the same as CPSC. So the answer to your question is no. And then from the standpoint of collaboration, my answer to that would be, as an industry, let's sit on the committees. And the collaboration would be to go to the user side, because
Right.
the bulk of the problem with the speed, part of it is the rider being injured. The bulk of the problem we've got with the speed is the rider injuring at high speed illegally somebody else, a pedestrian, another rider, a rider on the product. So I think you'll readily agree that the role we'll have to play, or should play, in this discussion is not collaborating, but if you will, sitting down. Maybe collaboration is part and parcel of the committee process, but I think we need to serve on the committees. We need to be involved in the discussion. But I think that it's also important that the bicycle industry does not immediately embrace the out-of-class product. I think we have to think about it very carefully. We certainly, don't want to get ourselves pushed in one direction or the other, but it's not a bicycle. Our definition of a bicycle is the CPSC defined regulation.
Excellent.
Yeah, you're so right, Jay. And Heather, just to follow up. So Jay and I and his friend Mike Fritz, we've gotten into many discussions at CABDA about the two different federal laws. Of course, there's the original Consumer Product Safety Act from '02, defining a low-speed electric bicycle. And of course, for bikes came up with a modern definition in the 3-class system. Back in November of 2021, President Biden signed into law part of the Jobs Act, which included under one of the transportation sections. It created the new modern definition within that code of an electric bicycle in the 3-class. So it kind of muddies the water, but I totally agree with Jay that it's still, consumer products is all about the product safety. So it certainly makes for an interesting discussion. And boy, with the cat out of the bag, most of the states adopting People for Bikes modern definition and 3-class system. We have discussions about this all the time. Anyway, I know Richard and William have questions as well.
Yeah, let's keep it. There's lots of good comments in the chat as well, just to keep this moving. William, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. From a retailer's perspective, it's a lot of people are selling out of class bicycles that will continue to do so, whether we collaborate with them or not. They're fully aware that their products are not road legally for the most part. And yet a small percentage of those individuals will use it off-road and use it legitimately. That's their right. And there's no legal requirements, at least here in Canada, to say if I'm on private property, do what I want with my bike. Fine, go for it.
Yeah.
But the problem comes with the retailers actually promoting the product. So they'll have their traditional compliant e-bikes, but then they'll also have the non-compliant products that we're talking here. But it's also the same retailers that are also showing consumers how to bypass the legalities and boost up the product. So that's still a problem. So and from a retail perspective, the competition that I have here in our local area, a lot of it has to do with the retailer promoting these products to consumers.
Excellent. Thank you, William. I like the perspective of a retailer. Let's do a couple more. Richard Wittenberg.
Morning, everyone. Real quickly, I get really frustrated when people are lumping Surons and bicycles that or electric driven vehicles that don't have pedals and calling them a bicycle, because they are by no definition of what a bicycle is a bicycle. They are electric motorcycles, and they can go from 1 kilowatt to like up to 20 kilowatts, I think. And the bike industry has to decide, is that something they want to be known about and known for? And when we talk about the people behaving badly on out of class e-bikes, no, they're behaving badly on electric driven motorcycles that somebody sold to them to ride on the street when they're not legal to be on the street in the first place. And the motorsports dealers of the world are going to be selling those things, and they have been forever. So, I think I would like us all to get really clear about in our own heads what we're even talking about as an out of class electric bike before we get into the Suron questions and everything else, which clearly is a slippery slope for all of us, because then once it becomes, a DOT approved product, Department of Transportation, then there is a licensing and there is a certification that all vehicles have to go through, right? So just that's my words of wisdom to the group, is just let's really be clear about what we're talking about in terms of, e-bikes versus electric motorcycles.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. And there is, for all of our attendees and panelists, lots of great conversation happening over in the chat too, that's addressing some of the questions that are and comments that are coming up. Great discussion. Brandon from Miso Partners.
Yeah, I'm struck by the fact that there's a lot of motorcycle dealers that are also bicycle dealers. So a lot of that channel has picked up e-bikes as part of their assortment. And I think to not collaborate would be to exclude. So without, getting too caught up in the minutia, I think the important piece here is that you're going to have to find a line in the sand somewhere and be clear about what that is. I think it's important. And I would say collaboration, because quite a few motorcycle dealers are already selling e-bikes. It's a very profitable channel for them. And so I think that to overlook that, and, I think what collaboration means is probably different for a lot of people, but I would argue that not including a percentage of your dealer base in the conversation, I think would be counterproductive. I think there's some way forward here that's going to be clear, but it doesn't sound like it's clear right now. It sounds like there's a lot of, muddy waters. And so I think driving some of that clarity is really important. What is a bike? What is a registration required motor vehicle registration, sort of, as Richard was alluding to, or Richard was clearly stating, not alluding.
Thank you, Brandon. Daehan from UL Solutions.
Thank you again. Great conversations. Let's not forget that federal law supersedes any state and local laws. Federal law CFR 1512 defines an e-bike as a 2- or 3-wheeled vehicle, 750 watts or less. that when operated solely on a motor power cannot exceed the 20 miles an hour. That is the federal definition, regardless of the three classes of e-bikes. That's what we have to tell. Anything over 750 watt is illegal. Nowhere in the federal law does it say off-road or on-road. You know, when I see this 1500 watts or now 2000 watts, or actually there's a 3000 watt e-bike, two-wheel powered e-bike on the market, actually various ones. I'm scared, and for the benefit of people here, I'm a retired motorcycle racer. It's scary to see these devices on the street, and I'm in Chicagoland area, and they're everywhere. I live right by the high school, and by my driveway every day, at least 10 or 15 bikes that are clearly should be illegal, as they're above the 750 watts are being ridden. So we have to enforce that 750 watts is the federal law for e-bikes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dehan. Scott, let's have you jump in. You're a senior advocacy manager for UL Solution or UL Solution Standards and Engagement. Sorry.
Yep, we like to confuse people with all the different parts of UL, but I just wanted to jump in quickly to say I was at the National Conference of State Legislatures conference this summer, and there was a panel that the Transportation Committee there put on where they were talking generally about super speeders, and the panel was intended to be talking about people speeding in cars. But this topic came up about the out-of-class e-bikes and the dangers they pose to public safety. So I connected with the NCSL staffer coming out of that, and we were kind of brainstorming on how to keep this conversation going so that that organization, which represents state lawmakers across the country, could think a little more cohesively about this. So I do think there's a lot of appetite amongst state lawmakers in that, association specifically. So Clint, I actually already sent you an email connecting you to Doug Schinkel there at NCSL. So I think it'd be good for at least the two of you to connect on this topic. And then I think there'd be some more opportunities to engage with that group at NCSL to talk about what we would like state lawmakers to do on this.
No, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I love that we're already connecting in our resources. Let's just do a couple more here. I know I'm running us a little bit long on topic one, but it's such a great conversation. John Solich, yeah, I see your hand up. Would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. And I think great discussions. And I just one thing that we didn't bring up, and so everybody knows, there is a standard for it's called UL 2580. It's for standard for batteries and electric vehicles. And when you cross over between e-bikes and motorcycles, you're going to certify the batteries to that different standard. So even now, it doesn't cover like the speed class 1, class 2, and class 3 and other safety features that the standard UL 2849 covers for e-bikes. But even in the motorcycle area, there's standards for those batteries to comply to as well. So I mean, when we talk about dealerships that both do e-bikes and motorcycles, that's something to look out for. I mean, there's NRTL regulations for both. I just wanted to put that out there.
John, thank you. There's so much to understand. I do see one of our attendees, Molehill Bikes, has a question. So I think Molehill, you should be able to comment now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm not fairly familiar with the main laws, but I'm very familiar with what we have here in Virginia. And if I understand, when we look at Virginia's laws in particular, Class 1 through 3, each of those exemptions is an exemption in the state of Virginia from a moped or a motorcycle, depending on what wattage the bike would be at. And so if the bike does not hit the Class 1, 2, or 3 category, it is automatically back into moped, motorcycle territory. We're seeing a ton of these things come through the door that people bought on Amazon from who knows what the manufacturer is, and they're being told that the bike shop is, and truthfully, it's more correct than motorcycle shop, but the bike shop is who has the parts to fix brakes and spokes and chains and that kind of thing. a lot of these bikes are, 1,000 watt with pedals with the off-road moto style seats, but you can't pedal them because of the weight of the system and the seat style and all of that. So it's a kind of a fake pedal almost. I mean, technically works if you had it in a stand. But where are we at when we look at all of this Chinese imported stuff? That do we? I mean, I'm assuming we just tell everybody that they're basically non-serviceable.
Thank you, Molehill Bikes. One of our panel members want to jump in, or I'm happy to. We firmly believe because of the OSHA requirements that you should only be servicing and selling bikes that are certified to the UL standards by a NERDL. So that's how we would address that. But I saw Jay Townley put his hand up. So Jay?
No, I agree 100% with you. It's right now the way the safety pledge states this, Heather's correct. So what the safety pledge says is that a specialty bike retailer would only service products that meet and are certified to meet by a NERDL the UL standards 2849 or 2271, 2272 et al. For the batteries. So that right now is the answer, I think, that would fit best with your question. Don't service them unless they're tested and certified too.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, and Dave, I back up. So
I just wanted to add to what John said earlier. UL 2580 is the standard for electric vehicle batteries, and there is a UL 2850 because we like to confuse people. 2850 is for electric motorcycles. It's a standard for electric motorcycles. That's one number above 2849, which is for electric e-bikes. 2850 is for electric motorcycles. There's an outline of investigation. It's a UL standard for certification of electric motorcycles, scooters, and anything that's above a e-bike definition.
Thank you. We'll take one more comment here from a retailer, and then I need to move us to the next topic. William, I see your hand up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to, as a fellow owner in a bike shop, absolutely. I think the NBDA stance is don't touch it. It's serviceable. I think you're opening up a potential can of worms for liability for yourself. And I would just not touch it. So I think you're asking for problems servicing these products, unfortunately.
Thank you, William. Great discussion. I'm sorry to cut it short here, but got us all thinking about how we'll, relate to this moving forward. Clint, thank you for the great, let's throw it out for the conversation. I liked that today. That was good. Let's move to topic 2. Topic 2 is the throttle debate, safety regulation and the role of control in e-bikes. So throttles are one of the most debated features in e-bike design and regulation. Some view them as a safety risk, while others question why they're such a focal point compared to factors that we've been discussing, like speed, acceleration. So we want to talk about the role that throttles play in rider safety, how they've been addressed in regulations, and any data or experience that we can talk about that we're seeing in the real world impact or at retail level. I know talking to retailers that these throttle bikes are some of the best sellers and that consumers are asking for them. So just to lead us into the conversation, the person who suggested this topic, Don Miller, Senior Advisor to New York City Chief Climate Officer. Maybe Don, would you just walk us into this a little bit, and then we can have the panel members go from there.
Sure, and thank you for including this topic with this group. I'm very looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. From a policy perspective, like many communities, right, we're hearing a lot of concerns about the speed of bikes, the power of bikes, people just not feeling safe, either as pedestrians or as fellow cyclists sharing the road with e-bikes. And so everyone's trying to come up with solutions. A couple that have been put forth locally. There's a proposal to sort of have a maximum operating speed, sort of like a speed limit for a car for bicycles. There's a recent city council piece of legislation that was introduced for consideration that would limit basically the overall speed of a bike that could be sold in New York City to 20 miles an hour. So trying to get at what devices are going into circulation. You know, and when these different types of speed approaches to address speed come up, sometimes people say, no, 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 it's not the speed, it's the throttle. You know, the way we solve this is by getting rid of throttles. And personally, I never quite understood that. You know, I ride a bike with a throttle, and I feel it enables me to, you know, actually pilot the bike more safely because it's heavy and I can get started a little more easily with a heavy load. I think I'm more inclined to actually like start and stop properly at traffic lights because I can easily get started again. I don't have a momentum problem that some people feel. But you know, I don't want to just rely too much on my own instincts when people are coming with and sort of saying it's the throttle as opposed to speed or acceleration or power that is kind of the touch point for a policy intervention. So, you know, I asked Heather and Megan if we could have a discussion here so we could learn more about if there is something specific to throttles that we're missing and just general feedback on the debate that apparently is not localized to New York City.
Don, I'm so happy you brought this forward for our conversation. We do have a couple panel members who have asked us who have opted in to speak on this topic. So let's start with Richard Wittenberg, sorry, the CEO of Truxus Mobility. Richard, sorry I butchered your name there.
Say that 5 times fast and we'll see how you come out on the back end of it. So, you know, Don, thank you for being the voice of wisdom in the room here on this point, because throttles have been maligned from the very beginning. And I come from, you know, an enthusiast-based background of bicycle racing and thumbed up my nose at throttle-based e-bikes for a long time. But then when you actually listen to what customers want, they express exactly what Don said, is I just ride my bike more efficiently that way. I get away from stoplights more comfortably. I don't have to worry about getting stuck on a hill. There's a whole bunch of benefits to that. Now, the only thing I want to just add to that whole piece, and then is think about this theoretically in terms of what constitutes a throttle, right? So we all think of a throttle as something that you're going to take your finger or your hand and twist or press. But I can make an argument that if you have a cadence-based e-bike, your pedals are the throttle, because as long as your legs are going around, that bike is going to give you the power of level assist that you want. So, you know, just I'm coming out and saying, you know, point blank that I don't think it's throttles that are causing the issues, it's the speed. And that if you really want to start defining throttles, you're going to get into a very difficult, you know, point of differentiation of when is it a sensor system and when is it a throttle.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. I like how this is just another discussion for exploration too. You know, we're going to hear some varying viewpoints, I'm sure. We have another speaker in our panel, Clint Sandusky, who presented on topic 1. Clint, would you like to share your opinion? And then we'll open it up and we'll see other panel members. And Clint, I'll just have you unmute, please. Try one more time. It looks like it's trying to unmute and then it remutes.
A message came up. Okay.
Perfect.
Hey, just to follow up on Richard, I may tend to disagree with you a little bit. There's what we call cadence or rotational sensing, which is most common in rear hub bikes that don't have the sophisticated drive units. And then there's torque sensing, which is much more intuitive and it's based on rider input. And that would be mostly your mid drives. So one of the problems with the cadence or rotational sensing is a lot of times when you push down on the pedal or hit the throttle, you've almost got instant power, you know, sometimes to the max, depending on what setting you have. Where of course torque setting it's the amount of pedal pressure that you put in. So I think that's one thing in bicycle education that everybody knows that I do. And in Cycling Savvy, we talk about it a lot more. Rotational cadence sensing versus torque sensing. But anyway, with that, talking about safety, and some other people kind of alluded to it. So I do believe that it's more about the rider's behavior, not the e-bike, that determines successful outcomes. And once again, to kind of reiterate this, I do believe that the parents need to get much more involved in their child's safety and education. And the bike industry, including taking high quality and effective education. And that includes teen specific education, because I think for the most part, that's what we're talking about, especially with throttle e-bikes. What do the kids like? What do all the kids ride? Throttle e-bikes. So teen specific, which would include topics that is kind of like a driver's education for kids that will also prepare them to be better drivers out on the road, including rules for movement and all that kind of stuff. So that's the safety where, you know, education needs to play a much bigger role. Now, regulation, coming from law enforcement, that's kind of my baby. And I would encourage everybody to, if you have a heart for this and a knowledge, get a hold of your state, county, or local legislators to propose legislation or oppose, support, whatever, you know, to make changes that you see. And I think we can all agree, you know, there's two types of regulations. There's effective regulation, and then there's over-regulation. Effective regulation is target specific, easy to understand and enforce, you know, we in law enforcement, and it improves safety, where over-regulation can control every possible outcome. It's complex, it can be confusing, and let's be honest, it can lead to non-compliance. So talking about regulation, and if you are from California right now, regulation, here are two examples that were signed into law and what are called the e-bike safety pilot programs. One's up in Marin County, which is Northern California, and one's down in San Diego County, the lower part of California, where they're actually, as a pilot program for a number of years, then they have to submit their study to the legislature for review to see if there's going to be new laws. But they're both age restrictive. And I'll talk about the San Diego one real fast. It actually prohibits if a city adopts a local ordinance, which they don't have to do. So far, I think in San Diego County, I think only the beautiful city of Coronado has, but it prohibits class 1 or 2 use for kids under 12. The Marin County one is anyone under 16 cannot ride a class 2 e-bike. I kind of support that anyway. So we'll see how those programs turn out and what the studies reveal, the data. And in talking about data, I think we can all agree that data is only as good as the information inputted. And I did have a recent conversation with the California Highway Patrol and their crash investigation manual and their crash forms as far as coding for e-bikes. Now, California on their crash forms does have a vehicle coding for the general classification of e-bike. I suggested to get more detailed data, which we can all use, that if they could separate that into the 3 classes, I think that would be helpful. But now you've got to educate what I call the enforcers to what a legal e-bike is and what the 3 classes are and how to determine that. One other thing in California, I'm sure probably some of you have heard of the San Jose State University Mineta Transportation Institute. They were tasked by law to research and submit to the California legislature an e-bike study. Crash information, safety, you name it. Some of us at Cycling Savvy participated in that survey. So that will be interesting. A draft should be coming out here in the next month, and that at some point will be available. So we'll see how the data plays out. And of course, I'm sure we all have real world experiences as far as the impact of these class 2s, especially by our teens. So I'm finished.
Okay. Thank you, Clint. I'm going to bring it back to the throttle conversation. So Dawn really just opened it up, the debate, getting some opinions, and I'd like to hear from a retailer. Maybe William, will you share your viewpoint on throttles?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where I flip-flopped through the years about wanting throttles, not wanting throttles. I mean, we started back in 2010 and everything was throttle controlled. Michael Pasquale would also probably say the same thing, and that's pretty much what was the only technology that existed. We didn't really have anything of torque sensing that was anything of quality, let alone safe. And now we've seen a major shift in the design and the technology of torque sensing type of products, like mid-drive bikes, for example. And so what we found is that our consumer, after trying bikes that did have throttles and even hub motors, they found that very few of them used a throttle. However, what I did find from our consumers, and I can vouch for them, and I agree with it, is that some of our customers do have some sort of medical condition. And, they might be some cardiac issue of some sort, asthma, something of a sort. And the last thing I would like to do is put legislation out there to restrict those individuals from having the freedom of exploring the beauty of being on a bicycle, right? I mean, it's freedom for them. Their feedback was, this is life-changing. It can get me back on a bicycle. So with that being said, we don't have any throttle power bikes in our shop. So I think that category, I don't want to really restrict it, but I do get your point, Clint, and a lot of the other people that may be on this panel, others that are out there. The problem, once again, comes back to the sources. Too many of the e-bikes that have throttles are non-compliant products that can exceed very, very high speeds. So if anything, in a perfect world, if I had to think of something with a throttle, I would love to see, a throttle really being maxed out at a certain speed and that's it. But still having them available on e-bikes for those individuals who need it or want it on their product. As much as I don't think most people need it, if they choose the right properly designed e-bike. But I do think there is that category that we really don't want to leave out of the market to get out and enjoy it. Get out and enjoy an e-bike, excuse me.
So it sounds like the consensus is that throttles are something that consumers are asking for. They're not playing a role in the safety of the bike so much as like that would be coming from other factors as far as speed limits or other concerns. But a consumer who purchases an e-bike and has shown how a throttle is used and how to properly use it, if that is a in-class e-bike, then chances are we're okay and we're solving the need for someone. Let's do one more question here or comment. Michael Pasquale, Micromobility Connect. Nice to have you on the call.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Great to be here. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on William because we have kind of a different view. Back in 2010 in Ontario, where William and I are based, they had mostly the scooter style, like a Vespa and motorcycle. That's how William started. That's how I started because that's what was available, not so much e-bikes. And now we've both evolved over the years to carry majority e-bikes, which we both do. But I find throttles are helpful for the reasons that William said. You have elderly people, you have food delivery drivers. There is a learning curve as well that I'll talk about on topic 3, which we're going to kind of segue into. But I sell the vast majority of my bikes with a throttle. And I think it's a great option for people to have if they get tired and they don't have to only rely on the pedals. So from a perspective of more people adopting e-bikes, I think there is a necessity for throttles, but also it kind of goes back to the traditional cyclists where when e-bikes first came along, e-bikes were kind of looked at like cheating, like not being able to, pedal or anything, right? But then you look today and now throttles are widely accepted. But let's rewind even further to when there was horse and buggy and the car. People said, oh, those cars, no, I'm not gonna take that in. But now look at cars, right? So it's evolved like everything else, electric bikes. And I think the more options we have to make it easier but safe, obviously, the better for our industry.
Excellent. Thank you, Don. I hope that gave you some good feedback from the group. Any other follow-up questions, or you got some good stuff to chew on for now?
Yeah, this is very helpful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. All right, let's move on to topic 3. This is focusing on what happens after the sale. So a consumer comes into a bicycle retailer, purchases their first e-bike. How do we follow up with safety, service, and sales information so that e-bike customer is now the smart e-bike rider? The question specifically is, how can e-bike retailers design post-sale customer engagement strategies that enhance rider safety, thinking about battery storage, safe riding practices, and also keep that customer coming back to the store? Great question. I love this, right? Because we have an obligation to follow up with that safety, service, and sales information. So speaker number 1 on the panel is Brandon Morphew with Miso Partners. Brandon?
Thank you, Heather. Just going to share my screen. I feel obligated as a marketing agency to have some pretty presentation. So
Definitely.
Brandon Morphew with Miso Partners, marketing agency. I'm going to walk you through a copy paste follow-up sequence. So ideally you can take this and launch it inside of a week in your business. So the goal here is really to give you the structure and the template to, it's flexible, it's not fixed, but it'll hopefully give you an idea on what you can do. So if we think about the opportunity, this is a big moment, we know existing, oh, I think I missed one. Yep. It's a big moment. When customers leave the shop with a new e-bike, it's one of the happiest moments they'll have all year. It's an exciting day. And it's also a moment that they're the least prepared for what's ahead. You think you want to show them a simple way to keep safer, to keep them connected to you, to keep the door open for future sales, and doing all of that without adding extra work. Everybody's busy, so do it in a way that's automated. So the opportunity, we know existing customers are 2 to 3 times more likely to buy from you again. Yet 80% of what you tell them at that point of delivery is forgotten within 2 days. The point of sale isn't the end of the relationship, it's the beginning of the real work. A 5% increase in retention can increase profits up to 95%, somewhere between 25 and 95% by increasing retention 5%. So there's significant value out there with the existing customer. And so they forget after those 2 hours, those 2 days, 48 hours, and every great delivery handover, the rider forgets details about safety, charging, storage, maintenance, and that gap could lead to safety issues. These are preventable service problems, and they can lose trust. And I think that's probably the most important aspect, because trust is what keeps customers coming back. So how do we close this gap? When they come in, they hear all this stuff. When they leave, I plug it in and I ride my bike and wear my helmet. So how do we close it? It's with an automated follow-up funnel. So every new e-bike buyer gets a mix of emails and SMS messages over the first month. So they've opted in. You have the tools already. You're using an e-commerce platform. You have a CRM, some kind of email marketing tool that you're using. So we want to use these, leverage them to deliver important messages to the client. So here's an overview of a sequence. And you'll notice every touch point is educational first, but it opens the door for accessories, service, events without being pushy. So they get a welcome video. The top 3 things to do before your first ride. On day 3, charging safely tonight. Tonight's your first full charge. Keep it safe, flat surface, no overnight, away from flammables. 60-second checklist. Click the link. Joe's shop service, and so you're bringing them back into the store. Problem spotting email. Spot a problem before it's big. A service booking link. Invitation for complimentary safety inspection, and then congrats on your first 30 days. Here's some accessories and tips. So education first, driving them back to the point of purchase. So what does this do? It builds trust. It improves safety outcomes. It keeps your customers coming back, and it increases sales opportunities. So you have credibility and an opportunity to establish yourself as a trusted resource, educating the consumer about safety, keeping them coming back, and generating revenue. So how do I do this? All right, I want to do it. I'm on board. Okay, this can be done really quickly. So you have a sprint, 7-day sprint. Day 1, make sure your point of sale is capturing data. Are you capturing emails? Are you capturing SMS? Is everyone opting into your platform? Day 2, record 3 short clips on your phone. Welcome, safe charging basics, how to spot early problems. So you have the assets there. You have the content. Develop a template in Klaviyo, in MailChimp. There's a whole bunch of CRMs out there. Put together the tool that you're going to use, and then create triggers. It's important to tag your customers. This is an e-bike customer. You're tagging that e-bike customer in the port of sale, and they have a trigger around a new bike purchase. And then you have a Q&A sequence. Test it. Make sure that it works. Go through it yourself. Make sure that all the links are there. Make sure that they're actually getting the information. Do it with friends. Do it with family. Pressure test it. Make sure it's actually functional. It's shocking how many people put together all this time and energy, spend this work, and then have a broken funnel. And then launch it. Launch it with your real customers on day 5, and then measure. So how's it going? Are people clicking? And then adjust. Change subject lines. A/B test. There's all sorts of ways of making this. And within a week, you can have this, with a little bit of work, you can have this functional. So this first, 30 days, it helps build a relationship. That relationship can last for years. You're trying, they might have been the only time that they came in the store. You're trying to build a relationship with folks. And so you'll make them safer. They'll enjoy their bike more. They'll remember to wear their helmet and how to safely charge. And I'm happy to share, I have detailed workflows, so I'm happy to share more.
Brandon, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always love that how much you share with our panel and with our retailers. It's like you're giving us our own little marketing presentation right now. So it's really great stuff. I always take notes too. We do have one more speaker on the topic, and I'd like to make time for them, and then we'll open it up a little bit because it's such an important topic, how we're following up with our customers and keeping them back into our store. Michael Pasquale, Micromobility Connect. Thanks for speaking on this topic.
Hello again, everyone. Brandon, that was great. You touched a lot of topics I was going to talk about the follow-up process, but also there's kind of two different perspectives. There's new customers and new sales, and then there's all the services that you're going to get in your e-bike shop, which is another kind of stream of people that are coming in. So I want to share a quick story with everyone. The reason I entered the industry and started an e-bike shop over 15 years ago was I rode one and fell in love. And I had this experience. I'll never forget it. People ask me all the time, how did you get started? And I loved getting that experience to people and watching their smile ear to ear the first time on an e-bike. I've watched the industry change from 0 online sales in the last 15 years to a significant amount of bikes sold direct to consumer online, and have been able to pivot quickly in servicing those bikes and increasing our foot traffic and revenue. So I'm going to touch base on what Brandon talked about, but also the service side. Because new sales, if you're only getting a limited amount of sales, that's a limited amount of customers you can educate and actually have recurring revenue from. So in servicing all these different brands, it created more opportunities to educate consumers as well as increase our foot traffic and grow our business. I think we need to be doing a lot of things that traditional bike shops aren't used to doing in order to succeed. And fundamentally, it starts with the education of consumers and safety. I think that goes hand in hand. That being said, I'm going to kind of briefly recap the foundation which we built upon from previous meetings, and building off that foundation, a process that should be implemented to increase safety, service, as well as sales. And it breaks up into two different customers, as I said earlier. So you have customers that purchased from your shop, and then you have customers that did not purchase from your shop. They're both opportunities to educate on safety, service, as well as follow-ups, as Brandon was saying. So in the previous meetings, we talked about a duty to inform and the standard of care. Those are two things that kind of go hand in hand. And I implemented both of those in my shop. So these documents are not just about protecting against liability, they're about keeping riders informed and safe. And that starts with the foundation of helping customers understand the difference between a traditional bike and an electric bike, and the unique services that e-bikes do require versus a traditional bike. We also discussed previously the importance of providing a manual, and equally important, providing documentation, whether a paper trail or digital, that clearly shows the rider's been informed on key safety topics. What we're really doing here is ensuring we inform and educate the consumer while protecting our shop from liability, which should be the foundation for every shop. So the difference between regular bikes and e-bikes: lithium battery charging, storage, and care; regular maintenance schedules, which could use the delivery vessel of your CRM, as Brandon was saying, right? So for riders who purchase from your shop, it is overwhelming. I'm going to echo what Brandon's saying. I've been a retailer of e-bikes for 15 years. I can tell them everything: how to charge, where to charge. I'll still get a call saying, how do I charge my bike? And provide the manual and all the instructions. So we'll still get that. They won't absorb it. So we can send that information via email as well, and follow-ups, exactly as Brandon mentioned. That's what I would recommend. And it's really important that we stay in touch with these customers and follow up through automated emails and texts, keep them informed as well as engaged. So one of the things I like to do, an actionable item that everybody can do, I'm recommending dealers, because I've successfully implemented this in my own shop. So prior to taking out the customer for the first time, the first ride on their new electric bike that has never driven an e-bike before, we'll get them to ride the bike with the electric side off, and then just pedal it like a traditional bike, and that gets them used to the weight and the feel of that bike. When they return off their ride, we'll now introduce the display, turn the display on, show them the different levels of pedal assist, and have them take a ride just on the lowest level of pedal assist, just to get comfortable with that feeling of the motor kicking in. When they return from that ride, we'll have them and teach them how to use a throttle properly. Now, this is the part that will stick with them because you're implementing it and they're doing it. We want them to be safe on their first ride home and comfortable with their electric bike. So we'll show them how to adjust it, use their throttle, get them very familiar with it. In no time, customers are loving it and happy to receive email updates and more information from their new favorite shop. But what about the customers that didn't purchase from your shop? So they purchased online or elsewhere. We're seeing tremendous growth in our service center for electric bikes. I know that shops are seeing tremendous growth in servicing bikes as well. And this is where the biggest opportunity for educating consumers and getting that consumer back in your shop. So riders that generally purchase online miss out on critical safety, education, assembly checks, and the added value that us as brick and mortar shops really provide. I see this every single day. I can be in my shop and one after the other e-bikes that I didn't sell to that consumer, just keep pouring in. In my own shop, at least 80% of e-bike repairs are bikes we didn't sell. Most are usually purchased online, direct from the manufacturer and different sources. Onboarding an e-bike is a different process than a traditional bike. It has many differences. That intake is our chance to open dialogue and create opportunities for both education and service. So some actionable steps that shops can take is asking the right questions. So you can start with, how are you enjoying your e-bike? You can follow that with, where did you purchase your e-bike? How long have you had it? Who assembled it? And have you had a tune-up or safety check? So those are things that get the kind of conversation going. They'll tell you if they're unhappy, if they're happy, and it opens the door. These questions open the door to uncover risks, offer educational opportunities, and create natural pathways to offer service. So many shops can recommend or require, for a fee, a professional assembly and safety check before actually doing any repair work. We talked about that in previous meetings. You don't want to work on a bike that Uncle Bob built that may fall apart. You may want to have it your build it to your quality first before even working on it. So here's the reality. Most of those customers never got the brick and mortar experience. No one walked them through charging, storage. They didn't hear a single word about safety. And that gap is our opportunity. So by servicing e-bikes, we're not just fixing e-bikes, we're attracting new customer, raising the standard of care, and elevating the entire industry. So I just talked about when people used to resist e-bikes, shops that embrace them are now seeing their service, their business grow from 5, 10 to 30. And now many shops are up to 50% of their revenue is electric bikes. So you want to, just as Brandon said, I'm kind of going to touch base on this. Here's what it looks like in practice. You want to have battery safety. So proactive follow-ups on charging, storage, replacement, that prevents accidents and builds trust. You want to have service reminders go through your customer management system, semi-annual, annual tune-ups. You can catch issues earlier, create recurring revenue. Safety add-ons, helmets, lights, warranties, cargo kits framed as safety and convenience, not just upsells. Digital touch points, of course, text, email, apps, reminding them and keeping them connected. And every sale and every service follow-up is a chance to educate, build trust, grow. And when we blend all three, create safer riders, stronger shops, and a thriving e-bike industry. Every sale, every service, every follow-up is a chance to help the industry. When we blend all three, we get a safe industry. And I know somebody popped up in the chat. I saw it pop up, Heather. What about liability? Well, your liability could be limited by your insurance, by your comfort level, by which bikes you want to work on, whether they're UL certified or not. So that's up to each individual shop.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll take just a couple more comments here. Clint Sandusky.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, as always. And it was great meeting you in Vegas earlier this year. So I had a question. You were talking about, and I applaud you for doing it because not all bike shops do. The educational process, showing them how to operate their e-bike and this and that in store before they leave out the door. About how long does that take normally?
It depends on the rider and if they've been on a bike in a while. Some people haven't even jumped on a normal bike in a decade or even longer. So we get them going on the bicycle side, but we spend as much time as they need. I don't like to rush that part. I tell my staff, take as much time. If that person looks shaky or uncomfortable, don't let them go. We have a pretty good street where we have them ride to the corner and back, and then wait until they tell us they're comfortable. It could take 10 minutes. It could take 30 minutes. I've spent 45 minutes with people. It's a lot of time to put in, but you have to take that time to ensure people are safe and most of all comfortable on the road.
Michael, are most of them willing to stick around, or do some say, adios, I'll see you later?
No, I make it a point to tell them, when they purchase the bike, we're going to take you outside and show you how to use it. I don't like them taking off. I want to see that they can ride the bike properly first, and they're comfortable with the pedal assist, with the throttle, with the bike. We have 100% satisfaction guarantee. So there's more than just riding going on. We have to make sure they're happy with their bike, how it feels, and I want them to drive it to find out and get all that information back. And if they're happy, it's great. And a lot of times there's a challenge where if I don't know which bike, I don't know if I'm going to like it. And I tell them, no, you're not going to like it. You're going to love it. And I'm going to take you outside for a ride, show you how to ride it. And when they come back with that smile ear to ear, I'm like, can I give you a refund on that? They're like, you're not taking this away from me. So
I really appreciate you sharing your insights and for the conversation on this topic. I am going to keep us moving because we have 5 minutes till we adjourn today. I think the most important thing is to remember that when we're selling e-bikes in our retail environment, we are the knowledge, we are the authority. It is up to us we have an obligation to inform the customer. We can do that in various different techniques, but the point also is that follow-up, that post-sale follow-up, which should be done regardless of acoustic or e-bike. So any retailers who are on the call who would like more information on great processes there can always reach out to the NBDA, and we can connect you with fellow retailers or give you some of our own resources we have provided to our members. So with that, Jay, I'm going to turn it over to you for a quick summary, couple minute summary, and then we'll talk about the next meeting and adjourn.
And I'll make this as quick as I can. What a great session. We started with Clint Sandusky. Should the industry collaborate is the way I would look at this as a topic for, relative to the class as a product. And I think after listening to the panel members, we're back to, I think we need to, as a group, as an industry, partake in the conversation. There's definitely a class trap that we can fall into because class is use as opposed to regulating a product. And I think we can bring that to a collaborative process so that we don't have some of the issues that crop up. Throttles were discussed, and Dawn, thank you again for bringing that up, because throttles is one of the, I think, overriding discussions we have to have within the industry. And I know in talking to my partner Mike Fritz, who is the technologist in the group here, throttles can be made as safe and as controllable through the battery management systems and through the electronics on an e-bike as any other system on an e-bike, so that you can make a mid-drive system electronically and responsively just as responsive as a throttle system and vice versa. But this bears a lot of discussion, and I think we'll be back to it again. The after sale discussion's superb, and I agree with Heather. Great deal of information that was between Brandon and Michael imparted to the group. Brandon from the marketing standpoint, Michael from the practical ownership standpoint over 15 years. So I hope that gives you guys a quick overview and a recap, Heather, to be able to fit into the timeline. But a great session. Thank you, everybody.
Jay, perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. I really did enjoy the conversation, how we did have that back and forth and really shared our ideas and as more of a complete panel. Maybe we're going to work that into our next panel event, which does take place. Thank you, Megan, for putting it into chat. December 9th at 1 p.m. EST. There's a link to register for that. Thank you again for our panel members. Again, we will solicit topics a few weeks out, a few weeks prior to the December meeting. If there's a topic that you'd like the panel to address or discuss, please let us know. Until then, anything that we can do to support your business or you personally, please do reach out. My email is heather@nbda.com. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, panel members. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.